Welcome to the hunt. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to Huntcast Podcast. This is Greg. I'm flying solo tonight. Doug is on his way back from rainy Virginia from a wedding down there, so he may get here in time to jump on and talk with our special guest that we have tonight. But before we get into that, obviously, one, we feel for everybody that got whacked with Hurricane Helene. Some of our good friends, manufacturer friends, a couple of them have serious water damage in their warehouses. One in particular, Thorn Broadheads, got hit pretty darn hard. I don't believe the building is usable. I'm still trying to get specific answers, so don't hold me to that. So again, support whatever we can do to help on our end. We'll try our best, but we hope everybody's doing all right. On a better note, we're here in Pennsylvania, and we are 6 days away from the archery opener. So now's the time, guys. If you haven't gotten everything figured out, you've got very, very minimal amount of time to do so. So the statewide season opener is this coming Saturday, October the 5th. We'll be out in the woods. Hope you are too. But let's jump into episode number 24, and we got a special guest with us tonight. So I'm not just talking to myself, thank God. So we're going to have a jump forward a little bit because archery season is opening here Saturday. We're going to talk some rifles tonight, more specifically Flint Ridge Rifles. So we're going to have Jared Walker coming on here in a couple minutes to tell us all about Flint Ridge Rifles. And I found these guys researching through some different stuff. I'm a long-range shooter. I like different stuff, and happened to come across these guys, so we reached out, and Jared and I spoke a couple weeks ago, and we were good enough, or he was good enough to find some time for us. So Jared, welcome to Huntcast Podcast.
Thanks, Greg. Thanks for having me on. Always looking for the opportunity to talking about rifles and hunting and just, everything outside.
Awesome. So you guys are based in Michigan or based in Arkansas?
So let me tell you how this kind of works. We're kind of a split. When we created this operation, it is a split piece between my father and I. Okay. So Dad is the builder behind the scenes. He's the gunsmith. Okay. So we actually have our manufacturing location, or our shop in, I originally grew up in Mountain Home, Arkansas. I live in Humble, Michigan. So we operate, I have a manufacturer, and he also has a manufacturer, Type 7 FFL. Okay. So we kind of split the business between each other. So he's doing the manufacturing side. I take care of all the sales. And then once the rifle's built, I am the one that is mounting the optics. If someone's doing if we're doing low development, making sure that they're up to snuff. And then ultimately that I'm shipping them out, or if somebody comes pick it up, or I'm shipping it out to the destination FFL.
Gotcha.
And that's kind of how we work hand in hand with each other.
Nice. Well, that's cool. That's
yeah.
Probably much easier that way. Less headaches and no fighting. So.
Well, yeah, right. So it works out good, and we kind of have, obviously there's always ebbs and flows, but right now it's the whole, everybody's wanting to get their stuff picked up before hunting season, and then we get the whole piece around Christmas when everybody's like, oh, I'm thinking about doing a build for next year, and so really, right now is a good time to be thinking about 2025, really.
Sweet.
Just get lead times and pieces like that, get ahead of it, because we are a made-to-order, everything we do process. So it's full customization.
Awesome.
Occasionally, we will put together a couple of rifles and say, like, calibers that we know would sell.
Yeah, right? Sure. You're more standard calibers.
Yeah, exactly. So occasionally we'll put one together as maybe a total package, or sometimes if I'm really wanting to go deep in a cartridge where I really want to learn a lot more about it, I'll do a full load development with multiple different types of bullets, powders, and then from there, I'd say it's a used rifle, but I have full load development ready to go, and essentially somebody could take this rifle with, say, 100 rounds and go hunting. Nice. It's ready to roll.
Awesome. Yeah.
So
prior to me getting on and inviting you into the actual call, we talked about it. So for those of you that listen and want to follow along, because I'm going to base a lot of this off of Flint Ridge's website. So it's flintridgerifles.com. And right as soon as you hit the homepage, there's something that jumped right out at me the first couple times I looked at it. And then I finally asked the question, what does it mean? So right off the bat, it says custom hunting rifles, a generational acquisition. And now that I understand it, it makes a whole lot of sense.
It does. And a lot of folks, they're like, what does that mean? So there's actually a story behind it. So this was, oh gosh, years ago. My dad and I, we were a good ways back in the Balsam Mountains of northwest Arkansas, whitetail hunting. And I think it was in December, and it's towards the end of the season. We were just sitting here talking, and Dad, he mentioned, he said, when I get a rifle, he thinks about it. He says, I think of it as a generational acquisition. Kind of like when I get it, I don't ever plan on getting rid of it. Sure. I plan on having that. It's going to go to you or the grandkids, or for it. It's in the family, right?
Right.
And from that, that's what we're trying to build. We're trying to build an heirloom quality rifle. Now, the looks, obviously today we've got carbon fiber stocks and what have you, which, doesn't think heirloom where folks would think of wood stocks and nice shiny barrels, all that. But it is functional for today, right? And we want that piece, when you have it, know that it's going to be there for your
Absolutely.
1 or 2, 3 generations to come.
Sure.
And we're here, so and we think about barrels like tires on a car, right? And they're made to be worn out. And when we wear it out, it's time to put on a new one. And that's the beauty of going into this custom side, right?
That's awesome. That's awesome. And it makes a lot of sense. So again, on their website, you can go in and looks like you guys do 3 different varieties, we'll call it, but then you have a whole bunch of customization that you can do once you decide to pick out which you like best.
Right. And the way I've got it laid out is essentially from, let's say, 3 different actions of receivers. Okay. Right. You'll see we have an Ascent, a Ridge Runner, and a Bomber. Now, the Ascent would be our lightest receiver. This is Defiant OEMs are receivers for us. So if you look at that, our Ascent is essentially the anti-receiver.
Okay.
Our Ridge Runner, there's been a couple of iterations. So if you think about our Gen 1 would have been the Tenacity. At that point, that receiver was discontinued. It is now into what is called the Renegade.
Okay.
And then our Bomber is based off of the Ruckus.
Okay.
GA Hunter. So essentially from there, you got different options. Now, what I would say is that's the framework. From there, you can go with any barrel stock combo that you want. So that's why I say it's full customization. But if somebody's looking for the lightest that we offer, then that's why you go with the Ascent. Then we have an AG composite privateer stock. And your barrels, you're going to be looking at either a proof, a carbon 6, or say an Oregon Mountain on the carbon fiber side.
Mm-hmm.
And then if somebody wanted stainless, we can do any one of the builds with a stainless option as well.
Okay.
So if somebody wants stainless fluted, there's the world is your canvas at this point.
Right.
It's however you want to paint it.
Nice. So as I mentioned before, I'm a big long range guy and like looking at different things. And there's always, there's custom guns that are out there that are pretty standard. They dress up some other actions and stocks, but you guys go full tilt. So what caught me was, as I was scrolling through the website originally, was your long action and short action selections as far as caliber. But then there was one that threw me way off, and that was the Walker Wildcats. And I'm like, man, no one does this. So give me the brainstorm where this came from. Was hey, let's just start building some rifles and let's go completely out of the box. Let's find the nearest triangle and offer it to people. So where did the idea come from to start, building rifles?
Yeah. So if you think about we did start out with some of the standard stuff,
Mm-hmm.
right? And it makes sense. And that's why we offer a lot of standard cartridges that everyone knows.
Mm-hmm.
Now, when you get into the Wildcat, first let's just talk about like what is a Wildcat, right? A Wildcat is generally a cartridge that is a non-SAMI, right?
Mm-hmm.
Cartridge.
Correct.
So and SAMI, for folks that don't know, is like sporting arms and ammunition manufacturers. So that's essentially the standard body at which cartridges have to adhere to. So if you look at short actions, you got like, say your 308 family, a lot of times they're around 2.8 inches. You've got your 30-06, which is around 3.34 to 3.4 inches. And then you got your real long actions, so like the rums that typically are around 3.6 inches.
Right.
Now, and when we get into Wildcats, the beauty of this is pairing it with a custom action or a modified, say, 700 footprint that has been opened up to where your magazine box has got, say, a Wyatt style box that allows for a longer overall length.
Okay.
So think of that 308 family, then goes from that 2.8 to 2.98 inches.
Okay.
Right. So what that is doing is it's getting that bullet out of the case where it's down in the powder column. It allows us to then take a bullet, get it out, and seat it where we feel like it's proper. Right. So one of the examples is, and one of the ones that I love to shoot all the time, is my 260 with more.
Mm-hmm.
And is that tongue in cheek off the Creedmoor? 100%. Right. So if you think about what we're able to deliver, is we take a 260 Remington parent case.
Okay.
You can fire form using 260 Remington factory ammo. And you'll see on our website too, for each one of the cartridges that we have listed, you have the parent case.
Yeah, I'm reading it actually as you're going through this.
Yeah. So with that 260, you shoot 260 Remington, it fire forms. From what that means is we're going to take that body taper out of the case. We then give it a 35-degree shoulder.
Okay.
When we set that one up, ideally the goal was to say 140 grain bullet going around 3,000 feet per second.
Nice.
Now that would be with a 26-inch barrel.
Mm-hmm.
Mine's at 24. I can run it at 3,000. I don't want to hammer my brass, so I kind of backed off a bit. I run it right at 2,950 feet per second.
Nice.
Now, what that goal was is to say that length of that cartridge, if you compare that and a 6.5 PRC, they're the same length, right?
Right.
But I'm able to get really close to that 6.5 PRC standard performance, or what would be closely to a 6.5 284 Norma.
Gotcha.
And that would be the goal over there. So each one of the cartridges you see that we have, you're going to get performance, and on almost all of them, we've done the similar thing where we've taken the body taper out, given it. Most of them have a 35. I think the only one that's a 40 is our 257 Walker mag.
Yep.
That one's got a 40-degree shoulder. Everything else has got a 35.
Nice.
One thing with those shoulder angles too is, obviously, with them being Wildcats, these are geared towards hand loaders, right?
Right. Yep.
And you're going to get minimal brass stretch, just like if you've heard of the Ackley improved cartridges.
Mm-hmm.
Very, very similar, right? With what we're doing in a lot of these.
Gotcha. And I like the fact it's funny that you just brought up Ackley improved. So if you go to the website and you read through the Walker Wildcats, so they're, working to bring modern enhancements to old classics. And Jared and I spoke on the phone a couple weeks ago. I told him how much of a big 260 fan I am, and I'm glad he used that as the example. But right on the website it says these are not Ackley improved cartridges and will not work with Ackley improved chambers or dies. So obviously you guys are stepping way outside and doing, your own things, which is, I think, awesome. Because there are, I'm not old, I'm old enough. But, there's a lot of guys, I tell them I shoot a 260, and I'm like, what's a 260? So it's cool to see.
It was ahead of its time. It really was.
For sure.
If it had had the proper twist rate, when it was introduced, the 6.5 Creedmoor wouldn't be what it is today.
Yep, exactly. Exactly.
And it really just because Remington put it in a slow twist and the overall length wasn't right, right?
Yep.
That's where you get with Hornady. They are very good at setting up cartridges properly,
Right.
where they have really good head height. If you notice, a lot of times the case may be shorter, but the bullet is sitting out, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Most of the time, if you look, the bullet boat tail junction is a lot of times sitting right at the neck shoulder junction of the case, and ideally, that's right where you want it.
Okay. And so yeah, now I'm hoping my brother-in-law will listen to it. He's a huge hand loader, so I'm sure he'll listen to this because. But so we went over the cartridges a little bit, which cheers to you guys for doing this, number one, because I know, the type of work that goes into it, because I'll have him, I'll go out and shoot a 308 or I'll shoot my 260 or something, and I'm not getting exactly what I want. So then I don't hand load, so I make him do it. And so far we've gotten a really good chemistry going on my 308. But the 260, again, is kind of like in that wishy-wash area where it's like, I want it to go a little bit more, but I don't know if I can, because now I'm trying to think of my barrel, what my twist is in this barrel, because it's out of a surgeon rifle.
Okay.
But I don't remember the twist off the top of my head. But so you guys come up with calibers, but
yep.
So obviously, did the calibers come first or did the rifles come first?
So the rifles came first.
Okay.
Right. And then from there, over time, we have experimented with different cartridges and tried to expand that. Right. Yes. There are a couple, I wouldn't even call them holes, but if you look right now in the 7mm, right?
Okay.
And there's a couple of them where we really haven't touched much.
Mm-hmm.
It's like that 7 mag, right? We could improve it, but to be honest, like we would get, I'm trying to think here. If you take what we would normally do to the 7 mag, where I believe it's got a 25-degree shoulder, we give it our 35, you do all the other pieces to it, you've basically created a 7 PRC. Now, the 7 mag is going to have a little bit more case capacity, and if it's throated correctly, it will technically outrun a 7 PRC when hand loaded.
Okay.
But to be honest, right now, I would probably talk somebody into a 7 PRC if they're really wanting to go long range, right, for heavy bullets.
Yep.
So that's something we can get into too, is like cartridge selection and what have you too.
Nice.
We're trying to select.
Well, it's funny because we did an episode, I don't know, maybe 10 episodes ago. There was a comment made about a 6.5 Creedmoor, and it was made by another pretty big podcast. So I didn't go at it because of what they said. It was just the way they said it. And not that my wife shoots a 6.5 Creedmoor. It's great. She's not, as into all of this as I am. She enjoys to go out and shoot stuff and have fun. So I get a little more in depth because I don't just go, harvest animals with my rifles. I like to go play.
Sure.
But yeah, so there's actually the one here that I don't know why my eyes keep going to it. The 300 Ridge Reaper.
Yeah.
So
and I'm gonna grab it right now.
Yeah, sweet. So this one's got me like super intrigued.
And it's probably like why, right?
Yeah, I don't know why. It just did.
Well, I could tell you that I feel like we do really well with what I would call the mid-size magnums.
Okay.
And I don't even consider this a huge magnum, right? Because they can go much
bigger, sure,
larger from here.
Yep.
Right. But the why is I want a long range elk hammer, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we already have our 338 rum, which I feel is an excellent cartridge.
Absolutely.
And if somebody that is not afraid of recoil, we're going to have a break, you're going to run a can, that's a lot of performance, and it's just, man, they're actually fairly easy to tune.
Okay.
Easy to hand load with. And there's even others out there, and I'll even throw like Gunworks makes incredibly good factory ammo. It's not cheap, right?
Right.
But they make very good factory ammo that works well with our rifles as well.
Okay.
I had a customer that he had just texted me yesterday and was like, "Hey man, I was ringing steel at 1,000 yards with the 338 rum that you just built." It's like he's like, it's just silly. He's like first time out and he's like just ringing steel.
Nice.
No problem. Right. So let's talk about that 300 Ridge Reaper. The why on that. With the rum cartridges, okay, the rum family, you've got essentially the 7, the 300, 338, 375, and say 416. Really, the ones that are only, I would say, around still today and are relevant are the 300 and the 338 rum.
Yep.
Commercially.
And real quick, so for those listeners that don't know what rum is, it stands for Remington Ultramag, but rum is what most of us in the industry call it. So go ahead. Sorry about that.
Correct. Sorry. Yeah, no, I appreciate it. Good clarification. So a 300 Remington Ultramag, right?
Mm-hmm.
So with a 300 Remington Ultramag, if we take it as the parent case.
Okay.
What I was really trying to work on is stay inside a 4-inch magazine box. And I know folks will be like, that's huge, right? But we offer a 4-inch magazine box, right? Off our Defiance Action.
Okay. 2
ways that we can run this. We can run this using an unknown munitions detachable box magazine.
Yep.
Which will run you at 3.95 overall length. Or if you run it with an M5 Hawkins open door bottom metal, okay?
Mm-hmm.
What that is it looks more like, it allows you to have 3 rum cartridges down in your standard hinge floor plate.
Nice.
Now, I've got this set up with a 245 grain burger.
Damn.
And that's what we're trying to roll with, right? And what I'm trying to get is, once again, around that 3,000 feet per second. I don't know if we're going to be right at around there, but I don't think we'll have a problem hitting 2950 with red fire.
Awesome. That's awesome.
You start running the ballistics on that. You look at your downrange velocity, and I'm not a big energy guy, but the minimal wind drift that you get, this thing is staying supersonic.
I was just going to say that that's a long way.
It's silly, right? But this is where you would get into big country, canyon country, right?
Yep.
And a couple places that I hunt out west, it is like it's ridge to ridge, and you get big steep draws where it's not uncommon to have a shot that's near 1,000 yards, right?
Damn.
Or potentially you're going to ride at that. I get hate from folks or whatever I do long range shooting or what have you, but I put a lot of practice into it. Right?
Sure. Oh, sure.
I mean, I took my bull last year at 922 yards.
That's awesome.
But I've taken a lot of game at long range.
Sure. And that's the thing is, and I'm glad that you mentioned that, because, even with archery, like, oh, you shot at, whatever at 80 yards. We don't just go out and do these things like on a whim. I'm going to try this. There's practice behind it. We don't just wait till the day before the season to sight the gun in and go, I can kill one in 1,000. So that's awesome.
I shoot thousands around a year, right? And between building customers, doing my own load development, working with different projectiles, and not to mention in Arkansas, we have our own range that goes out to 1,300 yards.
Nice.
So I will take each one of these rifles and put them, and I know my drops. We hang steel pretty much from 400 all the way out to that 1,300 yards, right? And I validate all of my drops to where I'm comfortable hitting out to those distances.
Right.
Well, that doesn't mean that I'm looking for that shot. It just means that if it presented it and I'm on a 6-day hunt and I only have one shot opportunity, I'm going to make the most of it.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And that's what people don't realize is, that we're not talking you're going to sit in a tree stand for a day and then go back tomorrow. So that's awesome.
And then I tell people too, it's like, there's a transition piece where I think comfortably folks can get out to that 400 or 500 yards without needing a whole lot of extra equipment, right?
Mm-hmm.
I would say that if you have a good a good turret with a good zero stop on your rifle, you know your velocity, you know the BC of your bullet, and as long as you're not shooting in some crazy high winds, you can make very consistent hits, 400 to 500 yards inside a vital deer-sized vital game out to 500 yards.
For sure. And again, Jared and I can speak in all the codes, but BC, he just mentioned BC, that's your ballistic coefficient. Right. So as a long range shooter, that's something you want to know so that you can, what they call in most movies and in real life, the dope of your scope, so that you can figure out where your bullet drop is at different distances.
That's correct. And then there's a big transition that starts occurring past 500.
Yep.
And really starts coming into play in that 600 to 800 yard range. And I would say that if you want to become proficient at it and you're willing to put in the work and the practice to get there, I feel like there's a couple pieces in your toolkit that you need to have. And you need to have a very good rangefinder.
Yep.
That has a ballistic solver in it, and probably a kestrel.
Yeah.
And those two have to talk to each other. And for folks that don't know what a kestrel is, a kestrel is a tool that you carry with you that it's its own little weather station that you carry with you.
Correct.
So that way, no matter where you are on this earth and where you're hunting, it pulls in your temperature, the barometric pressure, all of those pieces. And it takes into what we just mentioned before, which was it knows your velocity, the ballistic coefficient of the bullet, and all those pieces. And then it instantly, at that moment, spits out the solution. You range it, and you take that range, it talks back and forth to each other. Right? So when I sit there and I take my rangefinder, I hit it, and it says 650 yards, and it says 7 minutes. Right. And then all of a sudden my rangefinder pops up 7 minutes. I double check it on my kestrel. It says the exact same thing. Probably hit it a couple more times. At that point, I take my turret and I dial it to 7.
Yep.
That point, my rifle has made all the internal corrections to where there is no holdover. I am holding those crosshairs directly on the spot I intend to hit.
Yep. And so what Jared was just talking about when he said minutes. So the MOA, minutes of angle in a scope, that's how most long range shooters shoot. We don't turn and just click to get to, windage elevation. We're turning to a specific number based on whether it's a handwritten solution or a kestrel, talking to a rangefinder. And this is the difference with, Jared is much more of a long range shooter than I am because he has probably a lot better equipment than I do. But that kestrel and that rangefinder are super important. And so when I started in this industry many moons ago, I worked on the firearm side. And that's what I did with numerous different groups doing long range shooting and so on and so forth. So the kestrel is integral to solve it very quickly. But just be ready, like a good rifle, long range rifle. You're not buying a Mossberg Patriot price. Custom long-range guns are a little bit more expensive, and the equipment that goes along with it is a little bit more expensive. So it's definitely something you want to, if you want to get into it, kind of like archery, it's a buy once, cry once sport. Don't cheap out because you'll be unhappy with the results if you would have spent the little bit more money to get the better rifle or the better equipment.
It's crazy how many times you'll go and buy something, you realize just what you said.
Yep.
And then you turn around and you sell a scope. You sell this thing. You sell you buy a factory gun, then you realize I need a new trigger. I need a new stock. I should probably get a break on this thing. And then you realize, well, I need these rings and need that. And then next thing you know, you're like, I need another $2,000 worth of stuff just for this gun that I bought. Right. And I realize it's a big chunk that you're biting off when you step into this custom piece. But I will also say too that, we were talking about using that kestrel and the other pieces is I also carry a card with me, right?
Yep.
And I always have multiple backups in everything that I do, right? I generally try to memorize my drops and what have you to a certain distance, but I know that if something failed,
Right.
My rangefinder goes down. I then know that my gun is zeroed. Let's say I have it set to where I'm exactly 1.5 inches high at 100 yards, which roughly gives me a 200-yard zero.
Right.
I know that my gun is only dropping a few inches at, say, 300 yards. I know that my maximum point blank distance now is I have to be within, say, 350 yards to ethically take my animal now. Right. So if everything went out, I got to close the distance.
Yep.
And that's where my mind goes. Right. But if my kestrel failed but my rangefinder still works, I can still look at my dope card that I had built before I left. Right.
Right.
And I will do this with folks too. We had a customer that just came back from Alaska, and he took a doll sheep, a caribou, and a grizzly.
Damn.
Awesome hunt, right?
Does he want to adopt something?
Lifetime hunt. Right? The stories from this was amazing. And I felt like these are hand loads that I built for his gun. And
man, that's awesome.
And also too, it's like, it's the dope card that I built, and I'm just like, oh man, I hope this works. I'm sweating bullets, right? I'm like, I hope it works. I mean, this is an expensive hunt.
Well, apparently it worked pretty darn good. If you took all that, but that's awesome. And so, like Jared was talking, the dope card is, kind of what I do. So that because I don't have a kestrel, so I try to make the solutions at the range before I go hunt, and that way I have everything on a card that's either attached to my stock or on my arm or wherever. So all I have to do then is range my animal and know where I need to turn my turret to. And
there's a lot of good ones out there. You don't have to go pay for this.
Right. Yep.
It's free on Hornady's website.
Yep, exactly.
You can go print this off. And honestly, Hornady does a really good job of having even other people's bullets inside of their sulfur, right?
Which I have noticed.
Know your velocity.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think that's really good that Hornady and Berger are they've recognized that, like, for the long range game, those are the two that kind of lead it, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. And that's, and now I'm going to give the listeners a little background of this. So no, I've never seen or touched one of Jared's guns. What intrigued me was the fact that they're a mom and pop that is building custom rifles, and they're very good price custom rifles. And the fact that they're trying to build out that cartridge world for you, the customer, so that you don't just have to go with a 7 mag or a 300, when you put the money into a weapon like this, you don't want it to be just normal. So, why only 3? Why not 1? Why not 10 different styles? Give me some background on that.
Yeah. And like I said too, like this world gets much bigger when I take calls, right? we just so folks out there know, we're happy to build on other receivers too. Okay.
Nice. Okay.
Terminus, we build off Terminus, Pure Precision, their new skeleton.
Mm-hmm.
Stiller is where we started everything with. So there, and just so folks know, like we used to have it up on the website a lot more, which was what we call our Ozark. Essentially is where you take a 700 that you may have and you send to us,
mm-hmm.
and then we fully customize your 700. Right.
Oh, that's awesome.
Just so folks know, though, when you go down this path, this is because this is something that you are attached to. You are getting into the cost of a custom.
Right.
Just so folks know, because of the work that we we could probably crank out 3 builds in the time it takes us to fully customize the 700.
Oh, right? Man.
Now, but we understand the attachment that folks have to a specific rifle.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
And I mean, one of like I have used a ton is a modified 700.
Okay.
That gun was inheritance money on my 21st birthday from my great grandfather. Right.
Okay.
And he is a lot of the inspiration that I take for going out west, because he was the one out there, taking these nice mule deer back in the 50s and 60s, right? And that is a lot of the inspiration that my dad had into getting into shooting longer, right? Because my great grandpa was the one who would take what used to be called artillery shots, right? It's like you'd see a mule deer out there and you would shoot and you're like, hold a little higher, right? Because there was none of that. I mean, if we're talking like a fixed powered 4-power Weaver,
Sure.
right?
Yep.
Then on a 270 or a 300 Savage.
Yep. How high you hold them? 8 feet.
That's right. Hold higher. And no one thought anything about it.
No.
That was the game back then.
Absolutely. I mean, my uncle is the one that got me started in the hunting, and I can still remember I shot a Model 1 Savage, was the first gun I ever shot, and we were shooting at 200 yards at the hunting camp back then, and he's like, where you have the circle at? And because I was 11 or 12, and I said, well, I have it right on the bullseye. Nope, you want to be 15 inches higher than that circle. Okay.
Right.
So now I'm trying to measure 15 at 200 yards with my eyes at 11 or 12 years old. It didn't work so well.
No.
But so again, I'm going through just some of your stuff here. So I see Trigger Tech is your primary trigger, and you could get.
We will do Timney if somebody wants a Timney.
Okay.
Happy to, like I feel really comfortable with using Trigger Tech,
Timney,
and the Bix and Andy triggers.
Okay. And then a full slew of muzzle brakes, which you do the same in River Solutions, which I do like. You have the Carbon 6, OMR, and the McGowan barrels, Hawkins Precision, bottom metal, or the Hunter detachable box.
Yeah, I think Hawkins has got it nailed. They really do.
Yeah, it's hard to beat those guys.
Hard to beat them. And then our brakes too. A lot of the ones you'll see where if I ever post something that says FR mod, we're taking a Hawkins 3-port slab brake, and then we're putting 3 holes in the top once it's timed.
Oh, okay.
And the reason why we do that is allow those gases to go up,
right,
to mitigate jump, right,
yep,
and allow you, like say if you're by yourself, you're more likely to be able to spot your own impacts, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Easier for a follow-up shot. Yeah.
Awesome. So, and now color-wise, as far as stocks, I see like the ones you have here are mainly like camo of some sort. You could do solids and stuff like that?
Absolutely, yeah. We can do solids. If you think about it, so if you were to look on AG site, any of the colors that are available on AG Composites, Macmillan, you can get any one of those.
Okay, cool. And then, so now I see you obviously work with Zeiss some way, somehow, because I see every one of the models you can call or email for a package price with a Zeiss optics or the stainless steel barrel, which you mentioned before.
Right. So like with that, I will usually give folks, like if they're willing to go in and get the optic rings, I'm happy to also put together a package with Spartan Precision. I like using the Spartan Precision bipods, Atlas bipods. So like I said, there are a lot of different options we can go with there.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Now, so let me
go ahead.
So Zeiss, I'm going to guess just because they're in Michigan, a little bit easier to work with them. Why not somebody else?
Yeah, one thing that Zeiss has done a really good job of is allowed some of us smaller builders and manufacturers to pick and choose, right? Whereas we don't have to have a full storefront and have to carry a ton of inventory, right? They allow us to pick and choose based off of each build. So
nice.
I may be ordering a 4-16 by 50 on one, a 4-16 44, a 6-24 on the V4 models. I got a guy that wants a, top tier glass, then I'm jumping up to the 5-30 by 56. That's what we're working with.
Okay.
Now, I say that now if somebody has an optic that they already have and they want to send it to me, I'm happy to mount it on there. Right?
Gotcha. Okay.
That's something I'm happy to do as well. Another piece too that Zeiss is working with me on and some others is like, and one of the ones I haven't put it on the website yet, but it's gonna be a fun one that we're about to do is we're calling it the Midwest Stalker, and it's in 450 Bushmaster.
Nice.
And so it's probably going to be the most expensive 450 Bushmaster out there, but it's going to be awesome. And it's got the Defiance Classic receiver.
Okay.
Where we can run. We don't have to have a detachable box. We can run it as a BDL, right?
Nice.
It's Oregon Mountain 18 or 20-inch carbon fiber barrel, the AG stock, Zeiss optic. And what we're going to do for this is we will then take the turret, similar to where you see the Leupold,
Yeah.
where they'll have the 450 Bushmaster turret. Well, what we're going to work on is take the Hornady Custom 250 grain FTX custom ammo.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's what I found is it's been the most consistent, I think. And the terminal performance with that is just crazy good. And this is for those states where you've got, like, say, Michigan, what is it, Indiana, Ohio, some of these other places where you're, and even Iowa, where you have to use straight wall.
Right, straight walls, yep. Mm-hmm.
Yep. And then for those guys that do that, you're going to get a really cool hammer. And it's not, we're not encouraging people to go shoot crazy far with a 450 Bushmaster. It's more just so you can have fun with it.
Nice.
Right? This is more so like if you wanted to go and play and shoot playing steel, right? With a 450 as well. But ideally, what it's going to do is allow you to have very good, precise adjustments out to, say, 250 yards.
Cool. And yeah, I mean, 18-inch barrel, I could see it, like, over here on the East Coast, big things up in like the Adirondacks and the Northwoods of Maine. I could see one of those guys tracking bucks with that and getting rid of the lever action.
Well, yeah, it's just short. It's light. I mean, this whole package only weighs maybe 8 pounds,
oh,
right?
Man.
All together. Yeah.
Yeah, I like it.
Yeah, a lot of fun there.
So now the one caliber that I wanted to ask you about, and I just got to see if I thought I saw it in. Yeah. Okay. So we talked about the Ridge Reaper, which, like, now I'm like dying because we're going to have to figure something out here so I can get one of them. But you also have in the standard long actions, and not a lot of people out here in the East Coast understand some of the standard calibers that are out there, but guys in the Midwest and especially out West, use. And there's actually two I'm going to ask you about. The first one is one that gets tossed around a lot, but again, people out here don't understand it as much, and that's the 28 Nosler.
Yep.
So give me your breakdown on the Nosler calibers.
Sure. I feel that if you're going into the Nosler cartridges, you ought to be a hand loader, to be honest.
Sure.
Because the 26, I feel like a lot of the Nosler ones. The 26, the 27, and the 28 are like thoroughbred horses.
Right.
They can be picky about what kind of hay they like to eat, but man, can they run.
Right.
Right? That is a high performance cartridge. Now, they work well. They also eat barrels.
Yeah.
But you got to think about this as like, it's not going to be your one that you're going to practice with all the time.
No.
You can pull it out and they will hammer, right? I feel like the 28 Nosler can do, let's just take the 28 compared to the 7 PRC.
Okay.
Right? I can easily take a 180 grain bullet and push it 3125 to 3150 feet per second, right? Out of a 26-inch barrel.
Nice.
It is going to, you will have to kind of stomp on I'll say that. You're going to get about 3,000 feet per second out of a 7 PRC.
Mm-hmm.
Hand loaded, okay? Not all factory ammo is going to get to that.
Right.
So, but those Nosler cartridges, I wouldn't, if you're in the East, I don't know if I'd necessarily recommend using it, right?
Right.
Unless you own property or you had an area where, let's say, like a beanfield type rifle, right?
Yeah.
You want a laser beam. That's really where I feel like they work well. The problem is they don't have a lot of factory cartridge or factory offerings.
No.
Right? For folks that don't. And the bullet selection doesn't necessarily lend itself well. So like the 28 Nosler and the Precision Hunter ammo is loaded with a 162 ELDX. Whereas then you look at the 7 PRC is loaded with a 175 ELDX and a 180 ELDM. So you got a cartridge with the smaller case capacity loaded with the higher BC bullets going slower versus the 160, the 162 going faster.
Right.
So, and that gets into the design, right? And how they were spec'd out.
Yep.
The nozzler cartridges were spec'd out to fit inside what the industry calls a 30-06 length, which is let's say a 3.4 inches, right? And also, two nozzlers' own rifles are not as long in the magazine, well, as say like a Remington 700 or clones, where you can seat the bullets out longer.
Sure.
In a SAMI setup, if you take a 195 burger and then you set it like that, you're still going to be sitting about 3.65 inches overall length.
Okay.
It still fits comfortably inside of a 700 footprint without any modifications. So that makes it like, say if you had a 7 mag and you wanted to step up and you wanted a hammer,
yeah,
28 ounces is the perfect cartridge because it's still a standard Magnum bolt faced. You're just swapping out the barrel. You take a 1 1/8 twist and go whatever you want. And now you've got heavier coppers, which were not available a few years ago. And you can jump up. If somebody says, hey, I want to shoot like a hammer bullet, and you can shoot a 170 grain hammer copper bullet, and you can get those things zipping.
Yeah. Oh yeah. So the reason I brought that cartridge up is, one, again, a lot of people on the East Coast, aren't familiar with what it is. The reason I bought one was to hunt coyotes with.
No way.
Only
what, do you shoot a 120 grain bullet fast?
No, I shoot them pretty heavy. But exactly, you turned it the best when you said it's a laser beam, and that's the only reason I wanted it, was that It's a super flat shooting beam. So that coyote jumps into the scope, and I don't have to question it. I know where it's going. And
I'm with you.
Yeah, so that was the only reason. And
No. I've got a load with that 139 grain SST.
Okay.
I'm not hammering my brass.
Huh.
I'm going 35 25 feet per second.
Holy shit.
That's fast.
Yeah, that's real fast.
Yeah, and I'm sitting there thinking, I don't even know if I could shoot a whitetail with it. If I do, it's going to do some crazy damage, and I wouldn't necessarily take that bullet and shoot an elk with it. I would go heavier.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
But I think that the 28 I actually think it's a great cartridge.
Yeah, and that like you said, it was just something I saw that you guys offered it, and I was like, okay. Then the other one,
the 30 I really like, just so you know.
And so I've never shot a 30. What is the 30?
So the 30 is, of the nozzler cartridges, the 26 and the 28 are the longest.
Okay.
The 27 and the 30 are the next two. They're slightly shorter. The 33 nozzler is even shorter than those. But the 30 nozzler, once again, this is the whole setup and how they were designed. A 30 nozzler with a 215 burger is, I feel like, one of those ones, and you could say with the 300 PRC also, it's one cartridge you could go do everything with. Like anywhere,
awesome.
Right? And that's just because it can easily push that 215 grain bullet at 3,000 feet per second. So you don't even really have to work hard to do that. And they're fairly easy to tune, the 30 nozzlers are.
Okay.
You could get really close to that with the hand loaded. You're probably going to 75 feet per second slower, say with the 300 Win Mag, and the 300 PRC is going to be right in between them. Okay.
All right.
Yeah. So what's your other cartridge you're thinking about?
So then the other one, and I'm not even super familiar with this one, the 9.3 by 62.
Yeah. Okay. So where did that one come from, and why do we got it?
Yeah.
Actually, this came from a couple guys I know through backcountry hunters and anglers.
Okay.
I'm a state sponsor for Michigan and Indiana, and usually every year I will do a $500 gift card towards a build. And it was last summer, the summer before, I was at the Michigan Rendezvous, and these guys both won the gift cards, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they were interested in doing a build that was more of a historical African, say, cartridge.
Okay.
And that's what we have these built with. I'll be posting these too soon. I've got them actually. I just finished them up. These guys are going to be picking them up this week. So, little different setup here. So we did it on our Ridge Runner action.
Okay.
We took a Macmillan 700 Hunter stock. Now, the stock is what they call the molded walnut.
Yeah.
So it's a fiberglass stock, but it looks like wood.
Yep, I've seen those before.
Yep. And then what we did was we actually took a shilling barrel, and then they're right about 22 inches long. So these aren't, the idea here is to create a 300-yard plains game.
Like a safari gun, small safari gun. Yep.
Yep. Or if somebody is in the big woods,
right?
And they want a bear moose gun.
Okay.
Yep.
That makes sense.
So that's bear, moose, elk, and say like out to 200, 300 yards. That's going to really hit hard. Because
Nice.
I mean that is a 286 grain bullet going say 200 feet per second, which isn't crazy fast.
No, but that's
hard.
You're sending a sledgehammer downrange.
That's right. And what's been weird with these two is you set them up to where you're normally shooting, say, like a 1-4, 1-6 power scope, right?
Yeah.
And when you throw the optic up, you can see the barrel through your scope, which is it's bizarre, right? Because of such low magnification.
Right.
And then when you're shooting at 100 yards, this was a piece that I had to learn personally myself. Doing this was like, I needed to use a different type of target, right? I needed just like a giant shoot and see target versus I'm used to shooting small dots.
Yeah, right.
And so then what I had to do was get my 50-yard zero and know exactly where it's hitting at 50, then move to 100.
Okay.
And really, that's kind of where you're zeroing these guns.
Wow. Okay.
It's, because you think about two of a brush gun, because you want this thing to be hitting close.
Close, right? Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because the 9.3 by 62 was grandfathered in certain areas of Africa that could still be used on dangerous game.
Okay. Interesting.
So, yep.
Interesting.
So that's
interesting.
where that one kind of came from. Yeah.
So then I'm going to throw this other thing out, and I'm going to have to make a phone call. But so we're good friends with an organization here called Camp Freedom. And Camp Freedom works heavily with Lancer Systems. And Lancer just sponsored a range build for them on their camp. And does the numbers 1,760 mean anything to you?
Absolutely does.
So they just put in this brand new mile-long range. And I'm definitely going to reach out to the boys over at the camp and see if we can't get you out here with a couple of your rifles.
Oh, yeah, I'd love that.
So it's pretty cool. It's steel plates all the way up from, I think the first one, it might be at like 45 yards, and then every 50 yards all the way out to a mile.
That's awesome.
So, the mile target is actually really cool because it sits up on a cliff. But when you go, you can actually drive. They built a road to get up there. So I will try to make that happen because I'm sure these guys would be interested. They're all, gun junkies like all of us. So,
right.
But yeah, so we'll definitely try to make that happen. And then if you'll hold on, is there anything last minute before we cut the cast, but I don't want you to hang up just yet. Is there anything besides FlintRidgeRifles.com? You have Facebook, Instagram. How else can people find you?
Happy to give me a call. You guys can call me. My number is 517-304-4793. If I don't answer, shoot me a text, right? Because I might be on a call or on something else. So happy to talk with anyone.
Awesome.
There's so much more that we could go into.
Yeah. Well, what I'm thinking is
selections and what have you.
I think we're gonna have you back on a couple more times, just because that conversation was great, and we can go through a whole bunch of other calibers and so much more, because you're explaining everything to what people get it, so that makes it even that much better. But guys, if you're looking around, you're looking for a custom rifle, man, like I said, I've never seen one, touched one. Just the pictures alone, the information that I got from the website, and then speaking to Jared originally the first time. Again, price ranges are, super good for a custom built rifle. Obviously, you add different things, the price may change a little bit, but reach out to Jared if you have questions. Take a look at the website, look at the guns, look at some of the builds, because I've seen builds on their Facebook page. But yeah, I would highly recommend anybody to reach out to these guys, because, like I said, they're super good looking guns. And if you're looking for a change of pace with a caliber, I didn't count them all, but there's a lot. so they can hook you up.
I think it's probably somewhere between 25 to 27.
Nice. Nice. That's awesome. That's awesome. All right. So, Jared, I'm going to have you hold on 1 second. I'm just going to throw you on mute real quick, and I'll be back on with you here in a second. So, before we get out of here for tonight, back at Archery Fest, we gave away an elk hunt, and Glenn, who happens to be a good friend of ours and the shop, is out on a hunt. He's the one that won it. He's out there in Craig, Colorado with High Desert Ranch and Outfitting. All I can tell you right now is they've seen a lot of bull, some raghorns, a lot of cow. They were trying to make a move on a herd bull the other night. Unfortunately, for some reason in Colorado this week, it decided to be like 90 degrees every afternoon. So we'll see what happens. He's got one more day of hunting left. I did text him before I got on the air to see if he could give me some updates, but I got nothing. So for me, Doug just showed up all the way back from Virginia. So we're going to jump out of here. I'm going to talk to Jared real quick again before we get out of the studio for tonight. But stay tuned. Archery season opens here next Saturday, October the 5th in Pennsylvania. I'm sure Doug and I will be on Sunday night with some info. Maybe I'll shoot a doe hopefully on Saturday. We'll see what happens. But in the meantime, check out flintridgerifles.com. We appreciate you listening. We will talk to you guys soon.